Welcome to another lecture with Professor Dennis. For this one, we are looking at how to fact check like a pro. There's a growing trend across the nation and even the globe that you need to be aware of. It has to do with where our information comes from and how it's verified or not. With this lecture, we're going to take a peek into this trend and then look at some of the key ways to avoid falling victim to these patterns. Again, there's been a rising issue that's spread across the globe since the implementation of the internet and social media. A few actually. And we're going to look at 4 of these items and what causes them. The first problem that has come out of the digital age is that everything is at our fingertips. And we've grown to have shorter attention spans. Wait, what? Did you see that squirrel? All joking aside, it's true. Our brains have come to crave the stimulation of technology. Don't believe me? Try to go out and sit outside for 15 minutes without a tech device. See how long you can make it before you are instinctively grabbing for your phone or tablet. This also leads to everyone either writing about or researching about different topics. In other words, everyone seems to be an expert of some sort on the surface because they can either post about something without anyone to verify the information, or they can look up something on sources that have not been verified for their accuracy. So everyone knows what they're talking about, even if they really don't. But we have to accept it because they read it online, so it must be true, right? This leads us right into our next problem with the reliability or unreliability of sources. The habit of using unreliable sources has drastically increased since the rise of Internet 2.0, where anyone can be a content creator. Take the image provided as an example. While it's humorous, it raises a great point as well. Just because the image is there doesn't mean that the quote is correct or that it aligns with the correct individual. For instance, I would need to fact check the year of the creation of the internet to verify this information. I don't really, because we know that Abraham Lincoln was not alive in the digital age. I think it's the point that you have to be willing to dig a little deeper and not take things at face value that really comes across in this message. One of the other issues I have seen recently is the game of telephone. Have you ever played the game where a student is told a single sentence in a whisper? They then have to whisper that message to the next person, and they in turn whisper it to the person next to them. And this goes on until no one is left to whisper to. The final student has to say the sentence that they were given out loud. The result is usually an extremely humorous line that everyone laughs about when compared to the original. Our source information can be the same way. We get it from a source who got it from a source who heard it from their 5th cousin's sister's best friend's brother, who somehow saw the whole thing, even though they were out of town. Well, your sources can be the same way. How many sources back did this source get their information? The further back it is, the more garbled the information. It's better for you, your research, and your credibility if you go straight to the original, or as close as you possibly can, to gather your data. This helps to eliminate any possible garbled messages that might be misleading or incorrect altogether. Your next item to watch for is timeliness. This is especially important when dealing with information that might have to do with checking when events happened. A lot of materials these days are no longer presented in a strictly linear fashion. Even though the materials might be presented to you in a way that notes a different type of organization, such as by category, or even hints at this, the brain does not always interpret it as such. This can cause a breakdown in our comprehension. We take in the information, and our brain decides that it should be listed as chronological instead of by category. If you're looking at people one at a time, then the information would not be chronological. It would be based on the individual you are examining, each one in turn. This means that there's a lot of jumping around in the timeline. And if we aren't careful, our brain will not catch on to that distinction and will cause confusion and misunderstanding of the information. So, how then do we combat or battle these issues that have taken so much to the internet so that we aren't spreading misinformation? Your biggest asset for avoiding the spread of misinformation is called lateral reading. This is when you check at least two other sources to verify the information you found in the first source. In addition to this, one of these other sources you are using for lateral reading should be what is called a peer-reviewed source. A peer-reviewed source goes through an extensive review process before it is ever published. This ensures that only quality materials are being published in these avenues. In truth, this is one of your biggest weapons against misinformation. With the internet so readily available and blogs being a dime a dozen, it's much too easy for someone to post an intelligent-sounding piece and call it fact. But is it really? Who decided that this was fact? Who made sure that the information was of a high quality before it went out to the readers at large? That is where lateral reading with peer-reviewed sources and articles comes into the mix. Use this as your safety policy to know that you only have high-quality information. Finally, if you need to, draft out a timeline to keep the facts of the event or story straight in your head. This is a great note-taking strategy that you can use to fill in as you gather more data, which will only strengthen your analysis, your stance, or your informative piece. A few more tips for you to help you really enhance your writing and your posts. Before you post or submit a piece of work, ask yourself if you have done the following items. Have I verified this with two or more sources? Was at least one of those sources considered peer-reviewed? Did I cross-reference timelines? Do the date lines add up with the message I'm trying to convey? And did I check the statistics? Did I double check? Does the information I pulled from my source depict the whole picture? In addition to this, for any area that you had to double check against a source, that is where you want your in-text citations, because that is where you're using the source that you have listed in your Works Cited or References page. Remember, if you have it in your list of final citations, you should have an in-text citation somewhere in the post or paper that shows where and how you used this source. This is how you give credit where credit is due, in addition to showing that you are, in fact, an expert on the topic because you did use viable peer-reviewed sources to back up your writing. I hope you found this helpful, and if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, do not hesitate to reach out using that email icon in your learning management system. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you on the flip side.